Okay, hey guys, this is Taylor. I'm doing the Choose Your Fellowship book tag, which goes along with Tolkien-a-thon, and I believe they're reading The Hobbit next month. We'll see if I actually join it. Kind of depends on how my TBR works out. I might try and do it because I really love J.R.R. Tolkien. The only minor problem I have is I'm not entirely sure I know where the Fellowship of the Ring is. So there is that. But let's get into the tag. I have my pile of books right here so I don't have to go looking for them. So there's that. So the tag questions are based on characters, and so the first one is Frodo. I will take the ring to Mordor, a book you're not quite sure if you like or not, which honestly I don't really like the question for Frodo, but I'm gonna go with The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. Now, I lost the dust jacket for this. I really want the dust jacket, but I lost it, and it's probably destroyed by now anyway. The reason I'm not sure I like this or not, so I gave it 3 stars, so like it's not that I hate it, but it was definitely not my favorite. But since reading it, I kind of want to reread it because I actually started to like it. Like, it's not a book I normally read, but it's like I started to like it. Like, I wasn't particularly enjoying it while reading it at first, but then the more I got into the story, the more I started to like it. This book is about a girl named Imani. There we go, Imani, I'm sorry. Imani, and she got pregnant and had this kid, or has a baby, with a guy that I forgot the name of this guy. But the guy and her have broken up, and so they're not really together, and she's trying to take care of this kid, and there's this other guy that she ends up having like a crush on. And she also really, really loves to cook, but she's trying to find a more, I guess, steady or stable job. Like, she's like, I want to be a cook, but, you know, that's really hard to get into, and, you know, I have to think about my kid, like, I can't just think about myself. And so she decides to not, like, she's gonna go to college and get a different degree, but then, she ends up taking a cooking class in our high school as her elective, and so again, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not, so maybe upon a reread I can tell you if my rating will change. The next question is for Sam. I can't carry it, but I can carry you, a book you'll always be loyal to. And The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket, more so the entire series. I was about to say trilogy. There's 13 books. This is not a trilogy. The reason I will always be loyal to these books are these are actually the only books I can specifically remember reading in 3rd grade. And so I absolutely adored the series in 3rd grade. And upon rereading them, I realized how depressing they were and what that had to say as me as a child, that these were my favorite books. But they are the only ones that I can specifically remember reading. This is the first series I ever read. It was, I read them all when I was 8 years old. I completed the whole series in basically a year. Granted, I think these were the only books I read consistently. The series of unfortunate events follows these 3 orphans. They're all siblings, there's a lot of layers, and their names are Violet, who's the oldest, Klaus, who's the middle child, and Sunny, who's a baby. Violet's really good at inventing. Klaus really likes to read, and he's really good at retaining information. And at this point in time, Sunny likes to bite, although she develops as a character through the series. And basically, their parents die in a horrible fire, and in the first book, they are taken in by this guy named Count Olaf, who is very distantly related to them. And basically, a bunch of series of unfortunate events happen until the conclusion of the series. Which, even the conclusion, you can kind of consider unfortunate, but we'll see. Pippin, What About Second Breakfast, a book you want to reread. And for this one, I went with One for the Blackbird, One for a Crow by Olivia Hawker. This is a book that I ended up giving 5 stars after expecting not to like it. And the reason I kind of quote this one as the one that I want to reread is because there are other books I want to reread, but I'm also currently rereading them. So I guess that they don't really count. And I do eventually want to reread this. It was on my TBR. I ended up switching it out. But it is a book I do want to reread at some point. I just don't necessarily know because it's really good and I love it and I want to cry again. Oh man, guys, back up. I didn't tell you what this book was about. So this book, I did a whole review for it, if you guys want to know. But this book is about these 2 families, the Weber and Bemis family. And they live in like the frontier in Wyoming in 1876. And so they're the only 2 families out there. There is a town relatively close, but I think it's like a day trip to go to this town. Like you can't just hop down to the supermarket like for an hour and then be back. It takes basically all day. And let's see. Ernest Bemis finds his wife Cora in a compromising situation with their neighbor, and he kills the husband. Okay. So we have Cora, who's married to Ernest, and they're the Bemis family, and then there's Nettie May, who's married to the guy that Cora cheated on, or cheated with, and then Ernest kills this guy. You actually learn his name, but I don't remember what it was. Anyway, so Ernest goes to jail, and this other guy is dead. So the 2 wives and mothers, Cora and Nettie May, now have to survive through a winter without their husbands. Nettie May only has 1 kid. His name is Clyde, and then Cora has several. She has Eula, and then I think 2 sons, and then a daughter. I think. And there's like a little romance plot between Beulah and Clyde, and it's so adorable. Alright, we're gonna go back to this one. So, Mary, We're Going With You, Frodo, a book about friendship. I'm choosing Ranger's Apprentice, The Ruins of Gorlin by John Flanagan. Technically this whole series fits, but this one I feel like in particular fits. The reason this one in particular fits is because we're following these 5 orphans. Well, I say we follow 5 orphans. There are 5 orphans who grew up in the ward of this castle, or as wards of this castle, and in this castle, blah blah blah. Okay, words. There are 5 orphans. They are wards of the Baron, and they live in this castle. And to give them a better lot in life, because they are orphans, they have something called Apprentice Day, where these like masters will come and choose them as apprentice. And so the main person we follow in this book is Will. And Will doesn't have a last name. He knows nothing about his family. He just knows his dad is a hero. And so he assumes he's a knight, and so he wants to go into battle school. But he's kind of small and thin, and he doesn't get accepted, and so he's like kind of freaking out because nobody wants him. And then basically he gets chosen as a ranger's apprentice, and that's the plot. There's some danger lurking as he becomes apprentice, and he gets kind of caught up in all of that too. But the reason this fits for friendship, first of all, is you kind of get the friendship between, or you get the development of the friendship between these 5 kids, but also specifically between Horace and Will. And Horace and Will are very antagonistic to each other in the front, or in the beginning. But then stuff happens, and so they end up becoming really great friends. And you watch all the friendships develop throughout the whole series, but this one in particular, you get the close bonding of friendship. Aragorn, for Frodo, a book with hero/heroine to swoon over. Again, that one's probably not the best question for Aragorn, but we'll leave it. I'm choosing The Dwarves by Marcus Heights. I swoon over Tungdil. He's like, I don't know so much about appearance because it doesn't really talk about his appearance, but his personality is so great, especially in the first book. I love who he is in the first book. He kind of ends up becoming a tortured hero in the later books, but I definitely love who he is in the first one. The Dwarf series, if you don't know who I'm talking or what I'm talking about, although if you've watched any of my videos, you probably know because I've talked about it a lot, because several books in the series have been on several of my TBRs. But the Dwarf series follows a dwarf named Tungdil who grew up around men and specifically was raised by a mage. He is, I guess, a foundling, I think is what they call him. And he ends up kind of going on this quest because his, guardian's just like, hey, I need you to do this. And he ends up going on, this quest kind of thing, trying to get done with the one task his guardian sent him on, but then it kind of turns into multiple tasks, and he ends up having to save the world. Legolas, a book that still only counts as one, the biggest book on your TBR. So I haven't really organized my books yet. I don't have any bookcases. And for example, right now, I have them kind of spread out. These are books that I've read. And then I have books over in this closet over here that are just books that, I haven't read, but I'm not, super interested in. And then in the next room over, that's where all of the books that I haven't read, but am super interested in reading are. Although I seem to be missing books, because I know for a fact there's one book, Buzzkill. Oh, I still have books in my car. That's where the rest of my books are. I was, super confused. Anyway, but I haven't been able to go through all of my books. I just did a couple of checks, but I think Dune by Frank Herbert is the largest book on my TBR. It's 884 pages. I technically, and I say this technically, have Words of Radiance on my TBR, but I don't have that one with me. I got two separate editions of the Words of Radiance, or the Stormlight Archives. I have the American paperbacks, which are over 1,000 pages, but then I also got the England or UK editions where they're split into two. And so technically I have Words of Radiance and Oathbringer still on my TBR, even technically Way of Kings, but I have not counted the fact that, because I read the Way of Kings in the two separate editions, I don't have those with me. I lent them to a friend because I wanted her to read them, and so I just gave her all three of those books because I do have the UK editions, and I like the UK editions better anyway. First of all, it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing more, because I can get basically a 2-for-1 deal reading those. It also kind of makes it more manageable, where I can just read part 1 in the first month and then finish part 2 in the next month, and then I don't feel like I have to read 1,000 pages of a book while also wanting to read other books. You know what I mean? So Dune, I think, is technically my largest book on my TBR that I have with me. I checked it against a couple of books. This one, I don't know much about it. I know it's a sci-fi, and I think there's something to do with drugs or spice. I don't know. Gimli shall get you a box, a short but fun read. The Black Books of Secrets by Effie Higgins. While this can kind of have some dark moments because the Black Book of Secrets is very okay. I'll explain what the book is about before I get into this. So this book follows Ludlow, and he ends up running away from his parents, and he ends up getting in contact and apprenticing for Joe Sabato. over in the small town of Pagus Parvis. And so basically, the Black Book of Secrets is basically this book where he'll write down the secrets of the villagers, and some of them can be kind of dark. But it is very short. Like, it's not... I say very short. It's... I mean, it's 268 pages, I think. So, like, it's not super long. And I always fly through it very quickly. I flew through it the first time I read it, and I fly through it every time I read it. I can read this in basically an hour, and it's really fun, and I love it. My only problem, I think, with this series, because it is a series, is I haven't read any of the other books in the series, and that's because they're all more along the lines of companion novels, where they take place in the same universe, but they follow different characters. And I just want more about Ludlow and Jo, but we don't get more, I don't think. I don't think you see them. They might be side characters in the other books, but I just want more about them. Boromir, they've taken the little ones, a series you never made it past the first book. This one was really hard because actually there are technically two I think I can use for this one, but I didn't think about the first one until today, so I'm going to leave it alone. But the one I could not, or the only one I could think of at the time when I picked out the books was Serafina by Rachel Hartman. The other one is technically Eon. I do have Eona, but I haven't finished it, or I haven't even started it yet. But Serafina, I believe there's at least 2 other books, Shadowscale and Test of the Road, and I have not read this one at all, or I have not read those at all. I read this one as a library book at first, and then I heard about it, and I forgot about it, and then I wanted to reread it. I didn't know it was a series when I read it, and that all happened, so I wanted to reread it, and I could not find it, could not figure out what it was, and then I think I heard Jesse the Reader talking about it. I don't think that sounds familiar. So I picked it up, and I was like, this is the book. This follows a girl named Serafina, and she's a half-dragon. So her mom is a dragon who took a human form, and she has a father who's not particularly fond of dragons. Apparently no one is, and hers is a world where dragons and humans live and work side by side, but below the surface tensions and hostilities are on the rise. So Serafina guards her true nature with all of her being, but when a member of the royal family is brutally murdered, she's suddenly thrust into the spotlight, drawn into the investigation alongside the dangerously perceptive Prince Lucian. As the two just uncover a sinister plot to destroy the wavering peace of the kingdom, Serafina's struggle to protect her secret becomes increasingly difficult, and its discovery could mean her very life. And then the final book, Gandalf, All We Have to Decide is What to Do with the Time That Is Given to Us, a book that made you think about your life, the universe, and everything once you finished it. The Astonishing Color Raptor by Emily Exarpan. This one I definitely had lots of thoughts about, and so it just made me view the world in a slightly different manner, and I loved it, and it made me feel things, and yes. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about this girl named Lei Chin Sanders, and she's, I think, half American, half Taiwanese. Yeah, she's half Asian, half white. And so her mom ends up killing herself, and so trigger warnings for suicide, and I think it gets a little bit graphic in one of the flashbacks, so just a little bit of warning there. Because I know someone complained about how graphic it got, and I didn't notice it so much. So if that triggers you, just a little trigger warning for that one. But, this one, okay, so after she, finds that her mom had killed herself, she believes her mom had come back as a bird. Not believes, her mom came back as this red bird. And so this is like the magical realism aspect is her mom's this red bird, and so she has to go and like figure out what her mom wants before her mom disappears from the world forever. And she ends up going to meet her maternal grandparents and her maternal family, even though she had like never met them before in her life. And so it's very interesting. There's some other magical realism, like the flashbacks kind of have this magical realism aspect to it, and there's a little bit of another side. Like, I can't tell you about this like third other magic realism because it would spoil the plot or a plot point. So alright, so that's it for this book tag. I don't know what else to say. Have a nice day. I will see if I can actually do this. They are reading The Hobbit next month, so The Hobbit's really simple and I could read it really quickly, so I think I could probably pull that one off. The only one is, again, I don't know where the Fellowship of the Ring is,